Welcome to our FSB Northern Ireland support session this morning. My name is Roisin Kalski and I'm the Development Manager for FSB here in Northern Ireland. So just to give you an overview of how the event will run this morning, I'm going to give you a bit of a background on FSB and why we're doing this event today. Then we have two brilliant presenters for you, Brian Gannon and Stephen Campbell from Money and Pension Service UK. They're going to go through a number of slides in their presentation outlining very important information for you all as small businesses and small business owners. Then there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions and answers. Now you'll see at the bottom of your screen there is a chat box and Q&A. Feel free throughout the slides if you want to pop your questions in there as they come to you when you see the information on the slides. Stephen and Brian will try and answer them as they go, but we'll revisit those at the end then if there's anything really important that we want to go over again. Some of you will be joining us live, so obviously you can put the questions in. For anyone else, there will be contact information at the end, so if there's something that you've seen throughout the presentation and you want to contact the guys, then they'll provide that information for you. So just to give you a background of FSB for anyone who doesn't know us, we're the Federation of Small Businesses. We're the largest business support organisation in the UK. So we have over 150,000 members across the UK and over 5,500 members here in Northern Ireland. So to be an FSB member, you have to have 250 or less employees. But we have a range of different sizes within our membership, from self-employed right through to those larger SMEs. We have a range of different sectors and obviously geographical areas as well. So what do you get as an FSB member? Well, there are two sort of different strands, I would say, to membership. The first bit is the tangible benefits. So as an FSB member, you have access to a 24/7 legal and employment helpline. So obviously as a small business, you may not have a HR department or a legal services department. So to be able to pick up the phone and speak to a solicitor who will guide you through whatever your particular issue or question is really invaluable for small businesses. And I suppose particularly over the last 20 months with our challenges with COVID-19. There's a range of different benefits, including our debt recovery service, our cybersecurity, FSB Care, which gives you access to a nurse and counselling sessions, and just all in the arena of mental health and well-being. If you're called for a tax inspection, if you're an FSB member, we have a team of ex-tax inspectors, and we basically hand over your information to them, and they will go through that process for you. So a lot of really good back office support services that, as small businesses, you may not have the resources to have for yourself within your business. So a lot of our members will use their membership for that sort of tangible benefit basis and use it maybe as an insurance policy when they need the likes of the legal and employment help. The other side of it then is our lobbying campaigning side, and you may see some of our representatives in the media speaking out on particular issues for members. So as I say, we're a membership organisation. We rely on our members to bring forward those issues. So I will have members who will maybe call about particular things that they're having problems with. Sometimes they're very individual, unique things that we can maybe refer them to the legal services, or we can maybe do something on their behalf or point them to the correct information. But if we see like trends coming through from members, we know that there has to be some sort of action or campaign or lobbying based on that. So we have a policy team based in Westminster who will deal with the UK central government, but we also then all have devolved offices. So here we have an office in Belfast. So that's for particular issues that will affect businesses here in Northern Ireland. And obviously when the UK government would make a particular announcement on something, it doesn't always transcend here, or it means something different for business owners here. So that's where our Belfast Policy and Public Affairs team will kick in and decipher what that means for businesses on the ground here, or see if there's a particular bit of lobbying or campaigning we need to do on something. So we do, as I say, rely on the businesses to engage with us so that it's an authentic voice, that it really actually is the voice of small business rather than us deciding, here's what we think businesses might think about this. So there'll be a range of surveys and consultations that we will put out to members, and it's always really valuable to get responses to those, so that what we're presenting or what research we're bringing forward, it really is authentic. The other parts to it then are the likes of our events and communications. So we will have these support events once a month here, but across the UK there will be FSB support events going on. We also have a monthly networking event, so that's for businesses to engage, to connect with each other, and to discuss maybe issues that they're having, and that's a very sort of participant-based type of event. How we come about, what we do these events on is that sometimes within those networking events, businesses will say, we'd really like a session on whatever it might be. So today it's actually on pensions. So we do rely on members as well to give us ideas of the things that they want to have events on, but you're more than welcome to attend events across the UK. So if you go to our FFB website, not only will you see what the different benefits in that are, you'll also see what our campaigns are at the minute, and you'll be able to see what events are happening all across the UK. One of the things that will draw your attention to is our FSB Awards, which for here we will have our event in April, but the entries for awards are open at the minute. So small businesses have gone through the mill. I know families and communities have gone through the mill as well over the last couple of years, but we want to be able to celebrate that level of resilience and how businesses have innovated and been able to keep going over the last 20 months, and they've been really faced with some major struggles. We want members to also and small businesses to also make sure they keep a focus on the things that are important within their business. We know that we have been facing COVID, and we have been facing the transition from Brexit and all the difficulties that they have brought, but that there are also the core business functions that we need to keep on top of. So that's one of the reasons why we have this session today. It's obviously Talk Money Week this week as well, and we're delighted that the Money and Pension Service, the team here in Northern Ireland, Mark and Janine, had reached out to us and said, look, is there anything we could do during that week? And we've had a few requests for a session on pensions. So it all fell into place, and it's one of the things that as business owners or self-employed you do need to keep a focus on, are those sort of core central business functions. So this is why our session is happening today. We are recording it, so if there's something that you see during the session and you think, God, I missed that, I need to go back to it, the links will be going out on our social media on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and if you're a member, you'll receive the link then through our newsletter as well. So as I say, if you want to keep putting your questions and comments into the chat box as we go, and I am going to pass you on now to a great team of Brian and Stephen. So if I can just spotlight them now again, if I can see where they're at. So Stephen, I think you're going first, is that right?
Yes, that's right, yeah. So thank you, Roisin, for inviting Brian and myself to talk to you today. As Roisin mentioned, we are part of the Money and Pension Service. Now that's been established by the government with a vision to help everyone make the most of their money and pensions. So we seek to achieve that by providing impartial guidance on money and pensions. What that means broadly is that we can explain what you can and can't do with your money, and hopefully that will put you in a more informed position to make better financial decisions. Next slide, please, Brian. So in June this year, we launched the Money Helper brand to replace our legacy brands. They were the Pensions Advisory Service, which provided pensions guidance, and the Money Advice Service, which provided money guidance. So Money Helper has been established, hopefully to create a more consumer-friendly brand to help people make the most of their money and pensions. Next slide, please. So we hope you find today's session helpful in terms of planning for retirement. I will cover the first half of the presentation, which considers retirement planning more generally. And then I'll hand over to Brian to discuss what that means for you individually. Next slide, please. Okay, so a good question to ask yourself is how you will refund your retirement. I was surprised to find out that life expectancy on average is actually mid to late 80s, which is quite a scary thought. I'm sure many of us will have friends and family who were unfortunate enough not to live a long time, but if you were fortunate enough to live till mid to late 80s or even longer, how would you fund your retirement? Now, the answer to that question will obviously depend on our individual circumstances. Next slide, please. So a good place to start is to ask yourself how much income you would need to live on in retirement. Now, the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association have done extensive research in this area, which involved talking to people who had actually retired and asking them detailed questions about how they actually make ends meet in retirement. And what they concluded from the research was that for a minimum or moderate retirement, for a single person, you would need 10,900 or 20,800. If you wanted a slightly more luxurious retirement and you were a couple, you needed 49,700. So that's quite a lot of money, particularly given that it needs to be paid over your entire life. Now, so the Retirement Living Standards have they've created a website. It's retirementlivingstandards.org.uk, and that allows you to go in and click on the story behind those numbers in terms of the detailed spending breakdown. But so that's a useful starting point, but it's important that it's relevant to your own individual circumstances. And to help with that, we have produced our own pensions calculator on our website. Now, what this allows you to do is to select a retirement age and input how much income you think you would need personally to live on in retirement. You can input the value of your pensions and any other forms of retirement planning, such as property or indeed your business. And it will indicate if you're on track to retire at your intended retirement age. And if there's a shortfall, steps you can take to address any shortfall. Next slide, please. So how will you provide the retirement income? So a bedrock for many people will be the state pension. It's currently, if you receive the full state pension, it would be £179.60 a week, which is £9,339 per year. And to achieve the full state pension, you need 35 years of qualifying national insurance contributions. As a self-employed individual, you'll usually pay NI through self-assessment. And there are a couple of tools here to help you find out when your state pension age will be and how much state pension you'll get. Now, the forecast may indicate that you currently don't have enough for your state pension. Bear in mind that if you haven't yet reached the state pension age, by continuing working, you may make up the shortfall. But if there is still likely to be a shortfall, you are able to pay voluntary national insurance contributions to top up your state pension to the maximum. Okay, so next slide, please. So we've considered how much income you would need to live on in retirement according to the PLSA. And we've also considered that if you have the full state pension, it's 9,000 £300. So you can see from those two stats that there is a gap and a shortfall. And so in terms of how pensions, private pensions may make up that shortfall, some of the benefits. So it can be, first of all, a private pension can be accessed much earlier than state pension. Currently, that's age 55. And you receive tax relief on the money you pay into your pension. And for most people, that would be at 20%. So let's say, for example, you pay in £80 a month into your pension. The government would pay £20 a month into your pension in the form of tax relief. And that money is then invested. Now, you are also able to make employer contributions, and those are usually deductible for corporation tax purposes. And when you come to take your pension, you can take up to 25% of the pot as a tax-free lump sum. And one of the other benefits is that on death, pensions can help with inheritance tax planning. Because if you nominate a loved one to receive your benefits, they would usually not be counted as part of your estate, so therefore wouldn't be liable for inheritance tax. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are two types of pension other than the state pension that people generally have. If you've been self-employed all your life, you would have a defined contribution pension, which basically the money you pay in, along with the tax relief, is invested in a pot of money. Now, you may, during your working life, have had membership of a defined benefit pension, such as a final salary scheme or a career average pension. And that type of pension provides you with a guaranteed income for life. It's usually based as a proportion of your salary based on years service. Like the DC pension, that can be accessed from 55, but the pension is likely to be reduced for early payment. Next slide, please. Okay, so regarding pension options for the self-employed, so there are different options. The right one for you depends on a number of factors. With personal pensions and stakeholder pensions, the charges tend to be lower, and each provider will have a range of risk-rated funds to choose from. With self-invested personal pensions, you have access to a wider range of investment choices, including the opportunity to invest in actively managed funds, which try to beat the market. However, the charges tend to be higher for those pensions, as you're not only paying the SIP provider a platform fee, you're also paying the fund manager to manage your funds. So self-invested personal pensions tend to be for people with larger pots. Alternatively, if you want to take the hassle out of deciding where to invest in a pension, you may be able to use Nest. Now, Nest was set up by the government to help employers enroll staff into comply with the automatic enrollment legislation, but you may be able to pay into a pension into Nest if you wish. Okay, next slide, please. There is a raised hand. Do you want me to deal with the question, or are we running through the question? Is it?
I was going to suggest to Alistair Doherty, I think it is, who's asked the question. If you type in the chat box, Alistair, and I'll try and answer what your question is. And anybody else, actually, if anybody else wants to ask questions as we go along, type in the chat box or the Q&A box, actually, and I'll try and answer. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll also have a kind of an open forum as well. So if there's any questions we can't field as we go along, then there will be time afterwards as well.
Great, thanks, Brian. Okay, so this next slide is a worked example, which hopefully helps you see the value of paying into a pension. It's based on a number of assumptions, and it assumes that you start paying £100 a month into a pension from age 30, 40 and 50. Now, what this indicates is that if you, assuming investment growth of 5% and increasing your contribution in line with average earnings each year, your pension pot, if you're 30, could grow to £112,000 at age 68 in today's terms. So hopefully that will give you a flavour for the value of paying into a pension. So if, let's say, you're a young entrepreneur age 30, and you've got lots of other things that you need to think about, a little can go a long way. Hopefully this illustrates that point. And if you get into that discipline early, the impact of compounding can really give you much less of a hassle in later life. There is a strong link between not being financially engaged and mental health, poor mental health. So the pension calculator that I mentioned earlier can really help you see where you are currently and help you plan accordingly. And that can actually help you get in control of planning for retirement. Next slide, please. So there are limits on how much you can pay into your pension, and in order to benefit from tax relief, and it's known as the annual allowance. Now, the annual allowance is currently 40,000 for most people, but high earners or those who have previously accessed the DC pension may face reduction. Now, you get tax relief on personal contributions up to 100% of your gross earnings. So, for example, if your profits for the year are £10,000, you could make a net contribution of 8,000, and the government would add tax relief of 2,000. Now, you can also make employer contributions to top that £10,000 up to 40,000. And you are also able to carry forward contributions from previous years. Now, there are also limits on employer contributions, and that is to say that the contribution has to be wholly and exclusively for the purposes of the employer's trade. And finally, the other point to make is that when you're taking your pension, there is a lifetime allowance that could limit how much pension you could take without having to pay additional tax. Now, for most people, that won't apply, but it's just flagging. If you have a large pension, it's a good idea to perhaps contact our helpline for further guidance. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you come to take your pension from age 55, you have 6 options. One is simply to retire later. And if you do that, basically the money remains invested. Or you could buy a guaranteed retirement income, and that would allow you to take 25% of the pot up front and use the rest to buy a guaranteed income for life or for a fixed number of years. Alternatively, the next 2 options offer flexibility, meaning you can take money out of your pot as and when you need. You just need to think about how long you need your money to last. Option 5 is exactly what it says on the tin, taking the whole pot. 25% would be tax-free and the rest would be taxable. So a couple of things for that. You'd need to consider how much tax you would pay to avoid an unpleasant surprise. And also, once the pot's gone, it's gone. And finally, if you have a large pot, some providers may offer a mix of the other options. Next slide, please. Okay, so to help you get to know your options, if you're over 50, we've created a free impartial guidance session called Pension Wise. It lasts about an hour, and we call it the power of the hour because people often go into the session completely confused, not even knowing sometimes where their pensions are. But after the session, the guider asks questions about your circumstances and then provides relevant information to help you make better decisions based on your circumstances. After the session, there's a summary document, and if you have further questions after that, then you can give our helpline a ring. So that'll help you get to know your options. One of the biggest issues with pensions is once you've made a decision, you can't change your mind. So hopefully PensionWise will help you make better decisions. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for those of you who are employers, you may need to enroll eligible staff into a workplace pension. And your requirements are to choose a qualifying pension scheme, write to your staff to tell them about the scheme and their rights, pay pension contributions from both yourself and the employee on time, and tell the pensions regulator that you're complying with the law. Finally, every 3 years, you need to run an exercise to re-enroll anyone who is eligible, who has previously opted out. There's more information at the bottom there, but if you do have any other questions, you can give our helpline a ring. Okay, so that's me, my part of the presentation concluded. I'll now hand over to Brian.
Thanks very much, Stephen. That's great. Thank you. So what Stephen has done, he's really kind of given you an overview of the importance of thinking longer term, about starting to think about when you do finally give up your business, what sort of income are you going to need to have the retirement that you're looking forward to. He's given you some ideas to explain the different types of pensions that exist. So he's looked at how the state pension, if you think back to that slide, a single person who wanted a moderate standard of living, and these are real people actually in retirement now, needed round about £20,500. And even if you get the full new flat rate state pension, that was round about 9,400. So he's really explained how you can use the pension calculator on the Money Helper website to try and work out what the pensions you've got at the moment might give you, and then to give you a clear view as to how far short of your target you are. And he's gone through the different types of pension schemes that are available. And he's also given you an overview of the maximum amounts that you can pay into pensions. And being realistic, for the great majority of people, those maximums are sort of aspirational. What it really means, and what he's really shown you, is for most people, however much you can afford to pay in, you probably can pay into a pension if you choose to. So what I'm now going to do is perhaps have a little bit more of a look at, well, what sort of things you need to think about when you do start to plan your retirement, and how can pensions help with your plans. And I'm going to get you to think about how pensions affect you and your money, how it affects decisions you make about you and your working life, how pensions can sometimes be a valuable lifesaver if your health fails before you want it to, and also things about how you and your family may impact the way that you want to use pensions. So that's what we're going to have a little look at, and perhaps delve a little bit deeper into that. Next slide, please, Brian. So a bit about your money. One of the things that's very, very common these days is that the vast majority of people no longer start work at 16 or 18 and stay with the same company. Throughout our working life, we don't necessarily become entrepreneurs or business owners when we're 20. So a lot of us have legacy pensions, pensions that we've maybe forgotten about. And one of the things that we need to try and do before we start thinking about how much extra can I pay into new pensions is perhaps do a bit of an inventory and try and work out what you've got now. And whenever you move home, it's very normal that you write to your bank and tell them you've moved home. You write to your insurance company, your car insurance, your driving license. Just as a tip, include your pension providers on that list so they know how to get hold of you. And stay in touch with your providers, because in that way, every year you can get an annual statement, and that will give you a much clearer idea of how much you've got in your pension. And also, it often gives you an illustration of what you're likely to get based on the size of the pot you've got now. Just referring back to what Stephen said, on the moneyhelper.org.uk website, there's a really good pension calculator, and you can put in a lot of the variables. So you can see how, if I want to retire at 65, by inputting the pensions you've got, by working out how much you need, putting in the details of your state pension, you can see whether it's realistic and feasible for you to get the income you need at the date you've input. And as Stephen said, if the answer is not what you want it to be, there are various things you can consider. You can consider making more of the pensions you've got. You consider sliding back your retirement date so you retire later. You can consider paying more in if you can afford to. Or, of course, you can consider, rather than retiring fully, might a pension be a way of helping you go part-time and easing your way into final retirement? Just some help for you. If you do think, oh, I think I had a pension 20 years ago, but you can't remember, there's a really useful government tracing service, which is available online, gov.uk, find pension contact details. And if you can remember either the name of the pension company you were with, or possibly just your employer, and supply those details online, they may well be able to help you unearth any long lost pensions. And Stephen and I work on the helpline that Stephen referred to earlier, and we get a lot of calls from people who can't remember who their pension's with, and in certain instances we've been able to help them find literally 20s and 30s and 40s of thousands of pounds pensions they've completely forgotten about. So do also take the chance when you're planning your pensions to look back as well as forward. Just to remind you, on gov.uk, the vast majority of business owners will have a government gateway account. And if you sign in on that account, that's where you can find a bang up-to-date state pension forecast that tells you how close to the 9,300 you're going to get. And again, just really to build on what Stephen said, it's not just a question of seeing what you're going to get, it's starting well in advance to work out, well, how much money do I want to have when I retire? And to get you to start thinking about what you're going to be doing in retirement, and to get you thinking about how much in today's terms it's going to cost, there's a really good budget planner on the Money Helper website. Once you've got all of that together, if you're over 50, just to remind you, there is a free hour-long telephone-based pension-wise appointment, so that once you know what you've got, they can help you understand what your different planning options might be. You no longer have to buy an annuity when you take your pension. There's all sorts of different options, as Stephen briefly outlined. If you've got questions and you're less than 50, or you've got specific questions about in-depth pensions personal to you, ring our helpline. We're available 9 to 5, 0800 011 3797. And all of our technical specialists, Stephen and I are two of them, but all of us have got many years experience, not just of pensions, but of dealing with business as well. So if you do phone us, we do kind of get what you're asking, and we'll help you. So just to summarize, think about, how much do I need to get to my retirement level? Can I afford to pay more? And although we're in pensions, we fully recognise that there are other ways to fund your retirement. You may have properties that you rent out. You may have businesses that you can sell or continue to get an income from. You may have other assets that you can sell. But pensions are the only ones that give you the kind of tax relief that makes it a tax efficient way to save regularly. So when we're looking at pensions and your work, if you're still working now, which I guess all of you still are, how can pensions possibly assist you or support you when you come to stop work? Now, I was a financial advisor for nearly 30 years. I know I don't look old enough, but yeah, I really was. And basically, a lot of the clients I had who owned their own businesses said, well, I really don't need a pension, Brian, because my business is my retirement. And for many people, and maybe some of you, that may well be true, but of course, it's the Federation of Small Businesses, not the Federation of Large Businesses. And if you're a very small business, and in fact, that business is you, if you're no longer working and you are the business, is it a viable plan that your business will give you the money you need when you stop work? For some of you, the answer may be yes. For some, maybe not. And if the answer is maybe not, having a plan B in place, a pension, could be a really valuable source of additional income. Now, many business people love what they do, and that's why they work for themselves. And they just think, well, I don't need a pension and I don't need to worry about my business going because I'm just going to work until I drop. But some businesses require more than just mental health. They require physical attributes. And as we get much older, it's harder to go at the same pace. And for some of you, ask yourselves, is it feasible that, given the need for health and the nature of my business, can I realistically work for many years beyond state pension age? And if you answer yourself the question, maybe no, then a pension could be a way of giving you extra money to support you. So that maybe, again, it could be, rather than retiring fully, you can just go part-time because you can also pay yourself from your pension. If you're thinking, I'm not going to keep my business, I'm going to sell my business, selling a business and getting the best price, you only get to sell it once. Do you have a strategy for getting your business in the right shape so that you can sell it? As I say, for those of you where you are the business, if you leave the business, what is it you're selling? How much can you get? And many people have family businesses. Is your business financially strong enough that you can hand it over to family members so they can get an income, but still be enough for you to still get the money you need in your retirement? Maybe yes, but again, a pension could be an additional source of support for your income. And just the last slide that Stephen mentioned, he mentioned about if you do employ others, it doesn't matter if they're family members. If you employ someone over the age of 22, less than state pension age, and they earn 10 grand a year or more, you have to put them into an automatic enrolment pension. So are you aware of your employer responsibilities whilst you are still employing other people, and how they might impact on any family businesses you have? And again, to go into lots of detail in this presentation is perhaps a little bit too much. Our helpline might help those of you who are worried or want more help about automatic enrolment and what you need to do as an employer. Family and health. I sort of referred to health earlier. The vast majority of people in the UK don't have more than enough savings to survive for 2 or 3 months. And that applies to many businesses as well as people who are employed. And all we're saying is that it's good, if you can afford to have a plan in place so that if you do get sick, you've got some way of paying yourself. And although Stephen, I think, did mention that for most people, you can't access your pension until you're over 55, if you do qualify to retire on ill health grounds, many pension companies will then allow you to start dipping into your pension pot earlier. As I say, you do need to be sufficiently unwell to qualify for ill health retirement, but if you do, that could be a real lifesaver for you. Although we do pensions, we recognise there are other forms of insurance. And what I'm saying here, in a way, is that your pension is almost a form of income protection insurance. Be aware you can actually take out income protection insurance. So just as you can insure your car if the car goes wrong, or business machines if the machine goes wrong, if you're the machine, you can protect yourself by taking out an income protection policy. And just to reiterate what Stephen said earlier as well, let's just bust a myth. People often say to me, what's the point of a pension? If I die, it disappears. No, it doesn't. Whatever you've saved up in your pension, if you die before you take it, you can leave that, usually inheritance tax-free, to a dependent, a friend, a relative, if you die. Moving on to family, and just in relation to that, when you are looking at your long-term goals, like businesses have crises, you know, we've gone through nearly 2 years now of COVID. There's the supply chain issues in Northern Ireland, particularly caused by the protocol. And there's all sorts of challenges you face in your business every day. And you probably do set goals for your business. And when things happen to your business, you need to reappraise those goals. It's the same when your family situation changes. If you're having kids, you might want to reassess, what do I need to do with my pension and my other financial goals? If you're getting married, or worse, divorced, your finances need looking at. And quite aside from pensions, which you can leave outside your will, all your other assets, make sure you've made a will just in case the worst happens before you expect it. And going on to the cheerful subject of not being here anymore, what actually does happen to your pension when you die? Well, the value of your pot, however much you've got left in it when you die, all of that can usually be paid entirely free of inheritance tax and income tax to whoever you choose as your beneficiary if you're unlucky enough to die before you're 75. I hope you don't, but if you don't, you definitely will die after you're 75. And if you do, those same beneficiaries would still get the whole pot. They do then have to pay income tax when they take it out. And as I briefly mentioned earlier, if you die at any age, not just before 75, usually if you set up the death benefits in the right way whilst you're alive, payments to beneficiaries are usually free of any inheritance tax. But in order to do that, it's really important whilst you're alive to fill in a nomination form to tell your pension company who you want to benefit if you die before you spend your pot yourself. And whilst they don't have to abide by your wishes, they'd have to have a good reason not to. So do make sure when you're sort of sorting out your pensions, as well as checking out what you've got, how it's invested, what charges you're paying, check and make sure that you have given them instructions of who your beneficiaries are. And equally importantly, tell your beneficiaries that they're a beneficiary to your pension so they know to talk to them when you're not here. Now, all of this, this planning, this fitting in pensions around running a business is a very complex thing. And whenever I see the word midlife, I always think midlife crisis. And to help avoid a midlife crisis with your pension, we have created a midlife pension review appointment. And what it basically does, it's a bit like PensionWise, but it's specifically designed for people who run or own a business or who are self-employed. And it's an hour-long, totally impartial, free telephone session with a pension expert who understands about business. And you can sit down at your end of the phone with a nice cup of tea. They'll have a cup of tea at their end, and they'll talk through your business, your life, and help you understand how pensions may be available and helpful to you. And if you do want to book that kind of appointment, what you do is you email virtual.appointments@moneyhelper.org.uk to book an appointment. Just to make sure that you have the best chance of getting your email read quickly, as well as giving your name and your contact email address in the subject header that you send the email, put midlife pension review. And basically our service standard is within 5 days of getting the email, usually quicker, we try and respond to try and book an appointment to suit you. And do check your spam or junk mail folder if it's been more than 5 days. You'll probably find it sitting in there. Now, as Stephen differentiated at the very start of the appointment, we give help and guidance. So we help you reflect. We're a sounding board for you. We help you think about what the challenges of your business are and how pensions can help you. What we do not do is advise you what you should do. To get that kind of next level of planning support, this is where choosing an effective financial advisor could really, really help you. And typically the triggers where you might start to think about taking advice, are you looking to invest money? Even if it's not a pension, an advisor might help you. If you want to buy a regulated financial product, maybe then a financial advisor could help you. If you just want help with planning, that's what financial planners are there for. And if you want recommendations about what pension shall I have, how much shall I pay in, shall I transfer my pensions or keep them separate? All of these answers can be provided by a professional financial advisor. And I think when you're working out whether to do it yourself or pay for an advisor, it's the same as most things. We pay professionals to save ourselves time, or sometimes if we don't have the expertise we need, we pay an expert to help us make better decisions. And depending on what product you're looking for, how complicated your finances and personal circumstances are, and what your short and long-term goals are, might determine whether you choose to try and go alone and do it yourself, or whether you might engage the services of an advisor. One of the benefits of using a financial advisor is that if you choose a regulated financial advisor, all regulated financial advisors are authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. And that means if you choose someone who's regulated and authorized in that way, you are protected if things go wrong for you as a result of bad advice. I know it's a bit of a negative point as why you might want an advisor, but it's a very relevant one. And when you get a good advisor, and the vast majority of them are fantastic, you can choose products from a wide range of providers because that's what they've got access to. They can listen to you impartially and listen to what you're looking to achieve and then make a personal recommendation. So it's not just an off-the-shelf recommendation. They spend time getting to know you, understand you and your business, and then make a recommendation and hopefully help you avoid making expensive mistakes. But of course, the sting in the tail, it is their job, and so therefore they will charge a fee. And you have to weigh up, is it worth spending that money to make more effective choices, to give me a wider range, or can I do it myself? Now, one of the things with a lot of financial advisor directories is that you can't sort them. And the vast majority of people develop a long-term financial relationship with their advisor. And on our website, moneyhelper.org.uk/retirement advisor directory, we have created a retirement advisor directory. And I would see it as a kind of yellow pages for financial advisors. And what you can do is when it asks you, how do you want advice? Even if you don't want it in person, click the radio button that says in person, put in your full Northern Irish postcode, press search, and then it arranges 26,000 advisors. I think there's 9,000 on the list in order of how close they are to your front door. And you can then look at each entry and see whether you want to use one of those advisors. And we always suggest shop around. Advisors charge different fees and do different things. Talking of advisors, there is a very, very big problem. And this problem has got worse in COVID, where there are people pretending to be financial advisors, pretending to be pension experts. You might say Stephen and I have done that, but we are genuine. Now, if you get a phone call out of the blue offering, I'll come and do a free pension review and advise you what to do with your pension, the reason you should hang up immediately is that phone call has just broken the actual law of the land. So if you get any cold calls from people offering you free pension advice, free pension reviews, or indeed charged pension advice, hang up. They're not allowed to do it. Even where you request that online, Google yourself, and you do it yourself and you contact them. If you find people are trying to say things like, well, we've got this fantastic offer, this investment does this, this, and this, it's absolutely brilliant, but it's only open for the next week, we need you to make a quick decision. That's another hallmark of possibly a scam tactic. If they say, we are in a position where we're setting up a new commercial property in the Cape Verde Islands, and we can offer guaranteed money back whenever you want and guaranteed investment returns of 6%. They can offer it, but they ain't going to ever supply it because that's just so unrealistic that it can't be true. And if anyone says, do you want to access your pension before you're 55? There's a legal loophole. It's not illegal to take your pension before you're 55, but if you do, it will cost you a 55% tax surplus. So anyone who offers you to do that can't possibly be thinking of you. And what you might find is there's 100% pension loss because the other 45% they'll take off you without you realizing. So basically, please beware. One-off investments, time-limited offers, upfront cash incentives will give you money out of your pension, free pension reviews, legal loopholes, or people pretending to phone you on a government initiative. Generally, anything that sounds too good to be true is. Ignore it. I hope that's been useful. In summary, we've tried to give you an overview of what pensions are, how they work, the sorts of things you might want to think about when you're planning your business. And today has been sort of a very much a run through the principles. Now, if you sit down and you think about things, you think, yep, I'd like to get a bit more help, we offer it. So we have over 100 people in pension operations, and many of them at any one time look after the helpline, 0800 011 3797. We're available 9 to 5. We offer a web chat service between 9 and 6 throughout the week. There's the link. And you can also make written inquiries. There's the link. If you want to book a self-employed small business owner midlife pension review, there's the email. And as we mentioned earlier, my colleague Margaret McCluskey, who is sitting in the audience, I believe, also, as part of her partnership role, doesn't just help businesses and organisations with pensions, we also offer money guidance. And there's a separate sort of free phone line, 0800 13877, and a separate money web chat. And the sorts of other things that they can get involved in are far and plenty. So on the fourth column on the right, Stephen and I deal with pensions and retirement. Everything else that you might need to think about during your financial life is also available for further help from Money Helper. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening to Stephen and I. Stephen, I can see there are 6, the number 6 in the chat box. Can you see if there's any questions that people might be asking, or is that Roisin giving further information?
It's Roisin very kindly providing further information for contacting us.
Excellent. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful. If anybody would like to sort of ask questions, are they okay coming off mute, Roisin, to ask questions now?
I don't know that I can do that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Brian, but I do. I don't know if you want to go into that. There's one there about can I hold my pension in shares and unit trusts that I choose?
I think was that Roy, I think. Yes. So yes, you can. One of the types of pensions that Stephen mentioned earlier was self-invested personal pensions. And one of the things that self-invested personal pensions allow you to do is invest in a much wider range of different investments. So they still offer the traditional pension funds, but actually many of these SIPs will allow you to invest in stocks and shares. They will allow you to invest in pension type unit trusts. They even allow you to buy commodities. They allow you to buy commercial properties. So some of you who own your business may want to buy with your pension the property that your business operates out of. All of that is possible. Just be aware, as Stephen said earlier, because the software needed to support that much wider range of options is more sophisticated and expensive, you may well pay higher charges, but yes, it is possible to invest directly in stocks and shares, Roy.
Great. There's another one through to me here. Do dividends count as relevant earnings for pension contributions? Steve,
do you want to take that one?
Yes, I can do. So the definition of relevant earnings, it's outlined in the HMRC's Pensions Tax Manual. So if you go onto the gov.uk website and type in the search engine Pensions Tax Manual, it'll take you through to the HMRC Pensions Tax Manual. And you can do a search and type in relevant earnings. That will give you the definition of relevant earnings. It includes many things, including salary, bonus, commission, and overtime. But unfortunately, it excludes dividends. So you wouldn't be able to use dividends that you pay yourself towards your relevant earnings for tax relief on pension contributions.
But what a solution to that is if you don't pay yourself the dividend in the first place, you could make an employer pension contribution instead. So instead of making a profit, paying corporation tax, and then getting your dividend and paying income tax, you could instead not pay yourself a dividend and pay it as an employer contribution. So that is a way of still being able to pay in up to £40,000, even if you only pay yourself, a PAYE salary of 10 grand a year. I know it's a very common method where your accountant advises you to sort of pay yourself a salary of 10 grand and take the rest in dividends. And that doesn't have to stuff you from paying bigger pensions if instead of paying all of your money in dividends over your salary, you elect to make an employer pension contribution. So although it can't be used, there is a way around it.
Great, thank you, Brian. And we'll lead into the next question here, just on the difference between employer contribution and personal contribution. Is there one of them is better than the other, or what's the difference? Or
it's not better, it's different. So when you make a personal contribution, it is coming from your personal bank account, and you get tax relief at your highest rate of tax that you pay. But if you're a business owner, if you've paid yourself that money as a salary, you've had to possibly pay employer's NI and personal NI, national insurance, and your own tax. And what you do is you get the tax relief back, but you don't get the national insurance back. But the benefit is you can pay it from your own bank account. You don't have to dip into your business savings, so you can keep it separate. Steve, do you want to go through what an employer contribution is?
Yeah, so there's a few kind of ground rules regarding employer contributions. So first of all, you have to have sufficient profits in the business. And secondly, then the contribution you make has to be wholly and exclusively for the purposes of the business. Now, in practical terms, that usually means that the contribution is to reward key staff. But if you have any doubts in your own mind as to what that actually might mean, it's a good idea to seek regulated financial advice, just to double check, so that you've got the confidence that you can make the contribution without falling foul of HMRC.
Great, thank you. I always am amazed when I speak to some of my friends who, are maybe not in, I know a few of them in public sector positions, and, their pensions, they're well sorted. But the number of friends I have that go, I haven't really looked at a pension yet. And, is there a best age to be looking at it? What would you recommend?
Yes, yeah. The best age to look at it is however old you are today. Mm. Yeah, and do it now, because you can't do it earlier. But if you leave it later, as that slide that Stephen put up suggests, paying the same amount in, but 20 years later, starting at 50 rather than 30, gets you less than a third of the pot at the end. And that's a combination of paying in more anyway, but also the benefit of compound investment growth. And so the other question we get asked is it too late to start paying in? Well, absolutely not. Because even if you can't get where you want to be, you can get closer, can't you? So if you get tax relief back that you would otherwise have paid in income tax, that money is a little bit of extra money that you then have when you do retire. So it's never too late. It might be too late to get the retirement you dream of, but it could be soon enough to avoid the nightmare retirement that you might otherwise have if you don't take action. And as I said earlier, retirement planning is not all about pensions, and we understand it isn't. You may well have other ways of filling in those gaps, as we said earlier. But pensions give you tax relief in a very tax efficient way. And I would suggest to people, if you've got children or relatives, I would suggest you get them interested in pensions as early as possible. And the sooner you can start, the more time you've got to build up the pot you need.
Yeah, thank you. Look, we're almost out of time here. I don't see any more questions coming in through to me here. I know just a couple of points, I suppose over the last 20 months to the whole online scams and things, and you don't sometimes think that it can come into this as well. So I'm glad you raised that, Brian, as well.
Yeah,
we do some cyber awareness sessions and that too, and don't often think sometimes that could also be the case. So just for people to be aware of that. And I should just say there, to start making choices and planning now, from bits of information you've maybe seen today, whether it's in a personal capacity or as an employer, that it is important to start and make those plans now rather than saying, that we don't want people to come away from this session thinking, oh, that was great to know. We want action, because obviously everybody's situation is going to be completely different. So, you do need to get that sort of unique information and support on it. So let this be kind of the catalyst to start the ball rolling and to take bits of action as we go forward. I see there might be a late question in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Mark Sullivan, as a self-employed person, are my pension contributions a deductible allowance? No, that's for employers. Instead, they are attracting tax relief at your marginal rate of income tax. So if, for example, your annual taxable profits were 10,000 and you could afford, because you had other money, to pay in 10,000, you wouldn't. You'd pay in 8,000, and then the pension company would claim £2,000 tax relief for you. If you had gross taxable profits of 80,000 and you paid that 10,000 in, if you paid 8,000, all of that is in the higher rate tax bracket. In effect, it's reducing your salary from 80 to 70. So if you pay in 8 grand, the pension company will take 20% tax relief off the tax man and add it to your plan. When you then do your self-assessment and you say you've made a gross contribution of 10,000, you'll then get £2,000 off of your tax bill. So you actually get 40%. For those of you who have really successful self-employed businesses and earn more than 150,000, you actually get 45% tax relief. You don't get your national insurance back.
Thank you, Brian. Mark, hope that has satisfied you. Look, everybody, this session has been recorded, so we will be putting the links onto our social media, so you'll see there the FSB NI Region Twitter account, the Facebook account, my LinkedIn, and if you're a member, you'll get the link through in your newsletter next week. It's been a really useful session, and thanks to Brian and Stephen for giving your time and really, you know, I know it has been a whistle-stop tour through everything, but there's so much interesting information there, and on all those calculators and that too, that people can go and start to even think about the dream of flying on the tropical island somewhere in years to come. But you know, it is really good to have that sort of practical help and support from yourselves. Thanks to Margaret as well for reaching out to encourage us to have this event for Talk Money Week. And if everyone just, you know, does start to take action, that would be a really, really good outcome of the session. And look, if you have any further questions about FSB or as a small business, you want a particular session for us to run, just let me know as well. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us, and thanks Brian and Stephen. All the best. Thank you.